Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about caller ID and call blocking services server that I have created recently. So this is the topology which we are going to touch base upon today. So here you see there are three phones. So one is 10,002, 10,011 and 10,012. So these two are Jabber phone and this one is a SIP phone, basically third party SIP, which is connected to this call manager and registered to this call manager. Now I have deployed created a server which provides you the services caller ID and call blocking services. So this is integrated with this call manager. Now what exactly this server is? So basically, let's say if 10,002 is calling 10,011 or 10,012, or let's say 10,002 is calling 8,500, so the caller ID services can be provided by this server. So this server has a database, so which provides you the great capabilities to pass on the information to the call manager, and call manager can show up the names on these phones when these numbers are being called. Now let's say there is another scenario where 8,500 is gonna call 10,002 or any of these numbers. So you wanted to display who exactly is 8,500. So you can put in to the database like 8,500 is so person. So whenever the call is being received, so you can show up the caller's number. Now another feature that I'm going to show you is, which I've already demonstrated in my last video that I've created for the similar call blocking services. So where, let's say if I want to block incoming calls from 8,500 to any of these numbers, right, I can use this particular server to block the calls. I don't have to play around with CSS and partition. It's just plain and simple external call control profile which I'm going to implement and can block the calls. So similarly, if I want to block outbound calls to 8,500, so I can apply the configuration and the calls can be blocked. So I'll not take much time in order to explain about this scenario, but I'll just quickly explain you how exactly the tool looks like, and I'll give a demonstration on this particular tutorial, right? And just FYI, right, this 8,500 which I'm talking about, this is the PSTN side of it, like which is either a SIP third party, it can be a PSTN number, it can be a number which is connected outside of the world using SIP, right? All right, let me open up this particular server which I'm talking about. So I'll open up this server on the browser, and I'll show you the features of this server. So if I enter the just one second, yeah, if I enter the IP address of this server, it'll redirect me to a login page. So I have to enter the credentials pertaining to this server. So let's say I enter the credential. So as soon as I enter the credential, I'm logged into this particular page. So in this page, you will see many tabs here, so which provides different functionalities. So let's go and start explaining about these functionalities. So I'll explain first about the logout. So I don't have to explain about the logout. So logout is simple. Services. So now this services is something like it will show you like what all services are running on the server. If there is anything broken, so it'll show you not running in case if some of the services are stopped, right? So it'll show you like caller ID services running, outbound call blocking services running, inbound call blocking services running, and SQL services running. Now this is something called help. In this help, I have defined like how exactly you want to integrate or use this configuration on the server, and how do you integrate with the call manager cluster. Next is your change password. If I want to change the password for the SA or any other account, I can change the password. Next, let's say if I want to create a new user, I can fill in the username and the password. So the new user account will be created, and that user account can log into this particular web page using the credential. And the same user want to change the password, he can change the password using this old and the new password. Next is download the database record. So we are going to create certain tables on the server. So that table I'll explain you in a bit what exactly those tables are. But in case if you want to see what are the contents of those table, you can download the database from here. Now if you want to delete any record that you have already updated, so which we can use it and delete it from here, I'll explain you about in a while. Then delete table. After you create a table, you can also delete a table, so which I'll again talk about. So let's talk about first creating a table. So for incoming call blocking, so we can create a table name as customer name, incoming DND, For example, UC collabing underscore incoming DND. Similarly, for the customer DND and for example, UC collabing underscore outbound DND and UC collabing underscore CLID is the third table which you can create. Now, what are this table for? So incoming call blocking table is to block the incoming calls if you want to block any inbound numbers from being called from calling. And outbound call blocking table is for your restricting the outbound calls to the external wall. If in case, let's say you want to block some premium numbers, right? You can block those, you can add those numbers and those numbers can be blocked. And the third one is basically the caller ID display. So this particular table will, provide you the information for the caller ID. So let's say if you want, let's say as per this example, I want to feed in like 8,500 is for Mr. X, 10,002 is for Avinash, 10,111 is for, let's say, Sujish, or 10,012 is for Nikita, for example. I can feed in the numbers there and that particular table will get updated, and whenever there onwards, if someone is calling, they can show up the caller ID to the other person. Now, why are we using customer name here? So why is this required? So think about this scenario. Let's say you have one call manager dedicated for one customer. Maybe you have another call manager for another cluster, or maybe for another region, right? So let's say this is for customer A, another call manager is for customer B. Or let's say within this call manager, you are using multiple tenants, right? So in the same call manager, you have customer A and customer B. Now, whatever numbers that are being blocked by customer A is not necessarily that the same numbers will be blocked by customer B, right? So in such cases, right, you want to, have a logical, segregation of the customers on the call manager. Similarly, you have logical segregation on the database as well, so that you don't mix up the database for customer A and customer B and end into unwanted issues. So customer A call records or call blocking will only be used by customer A, and customer B call blocking or caller ID will only be used by customer B, right? So this is why we are creating this. So now let's say I'm going to use a cluster, or let's say instead of cluster A, let's say I'll use UC collabing as a customer info customer underscore incoming DND, right? Create table. Now similarly, I'll create another one underscore outbound DND. Now third one, I'll create underscore caller ID, right? So I've created three tables. So now if you see here, you can delete any of this table. If in case if you have created by mistake, you can delete any of one of these, and the tables will be deleted from here. Now let's say add a record. So what we are going to do is we are going to add a record now. For example, in the UC collabing CLID, now let's say for the number 10,002, I want to put it as 10,002 as Avinash Kanani, for example. Okay, the record is added. Now again, let's say I want to put 10,011 as let's say Sujish. Okay, I'll enter this. Now let's say caller ID for 10,012 Nikita. I've added as Nikita. Now let's say this 8,500 is customer A, for example, Mr. Customer A. Let's say I'll put it as customer A. All right. So I've added the records. Now let's say if you want to validate if the records are added successfully, you can go ahead and download the database records and use this particular table and download the records in the CSV file. So you see here, all the records are shown here, and whatever we have added just now. So likewise, you can see the records from this particular server. Now let's say you want to delete any record. Let's say I added a record by mistake. Let's say 10,000, or let's say 9999 test. I have added it as a test in the caller ID, right? Now this is by mistake. Now if I want to delete this record, I'll put it as 9999 and use the right table, and this will delete the record, right? record deleted. So that means you can also delete the record if in case if you feel like that is something that is no longer required, you can delete it from here, this particular delete record. Now as we have added the caller ID records, right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into the call manager and show you how exactly this look like. Go to the call routing and go to this external call control profile. So I've already into the external call control profile I've created. Okay, I'm logged out. Okay, so I'm already into the external call control profile. So the first and the foremost is name. So name can be anything, doesn't matter. So the same name or whatever, if you want to use it for some specific purpose, you can definitely have a dedicated name, but for us it should not matter in as part of this scenario. So this particular is your IP of your server caller ID and call blocking services. So this is the IP and it functions on port number 8000. Now here important thing, right, this cluster E. So this cluster E is going to be it has to be the first name whatever you have defined for the customer one, right? So our customer one or cluster one is UC collabing, right? So you have to feed in UC collabing. Okay, and in case you want to use the secondary services, you can always have another server and running the same services on the secondary server and use it for load balancing. And then you have something called rerouting calling search page if you want to use a diversion, and then call treatment on failure. In case this servers goes down or are not accessible on the network, how do you want to treat the calls? So basically you do not want to block the calls for something that you don't know, right? You might have to allow those calls if in case these servers are not accessible. So use this configuration and save it. So once you save this configuration, but what you have to make sure, like you have to make sure this UC collabing and the table record over here UC collabing matches. This has to match, and remaining after underscore everything is going to be static, so you don't have to touch anything on them. Okay, now this is done. Now I'll go to the phone, quickly show you CSF. There are two Jabber phone registered, agent 1 and agent 2. So on the agent 1 and agent 2, I have associated this external call control profile as test. Likewise for agent 2, this is for 10,011, and I'll show you for 10,012 as well. So 10,012 also has this test associated. I'll quickly show you for 10,002, the third phone, which is my phone. So for my phone also, external call control profile is associated. Now I'll quickly show you how exactly this looks like. Now let's say if someone is calling from 10,002, which is my phone number over here registered as a SIP, right? If someone is calling from 10,002 to 10,011, so on Sujish phone, you should see the call is coming from Avinash Kannan. And if let's say Sujish calls me, I should see the call is coming from Sujish. Likewise for Nikita and likewise for customer. Let's see how exactly it looks like. So here we have like let's say this phone registered, right? So this is these are the old entries, so don't worry about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically delete these entries. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this is 10,011 and this is 10,012. I'll place some calls and see how exactly it looks like. So I'll place the call from 10,002, which is Avinash Karnani, to 10,011, which is Sujish. Let's see. Okay, actually I saved the configuration, so I should re-register my Java, third-party SIP phone. Oh, I'm calling myself, sorry, my bad. Okay, so the call is, so if you see, the call is coming from Avinash Karnani. Alright, so I place a call from 10,002 to 10,011. The call has come as Avinash Kannan. Now let's say from 10,011, I'll place another call to 10,002. It should come as Sujish. Right? Just 1 second. Okay, now I'll place another call. See, the call is coming from Sujesh. Now similarly, I'll place a call to 10,012, which is Nikita's phone. Call is coming as now from 10,012 to 10,002. Now I'll place a call to the third party number, so which is going to be 8,500. So this 8,500 is I'm going to place a call. So this 8,500 should see the call is customer A, right? Let me register my phone, just one moment. All right, so this 8,500 is registered now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a call from 8,500 to let's say 10,011, which is Sujesh phone. So Sujesh is able to see Mr. Customer A. Likewise, I'll place another call to 10,002, 8,500, and Sujesh should see as Customer A when calling, and Customer A should ideally see Sujesh. Right? So this is how exactly the caller ID services looks like. So basically, any records that you want to create, you can have those on the server here in the database, and then you can show up the number. Now similarly, we can use a similar function for call blocking. So let's say if I want to block the calls for the outbound number, right, I can go here. Let's say I want to block 8,500 calls. Name can be anything, doesn't matter. So outbound DND. So I've added this record. Now if I go here and I need to just make sure like this particular seal ID is allowed. So for example, 8,500, right? I'm going to use this as external call control profile as test. So now if I try to place calls to the 8,500, so ideally the call should block. So let's see that. So the call is blocked. I'm not able to place any call. So let's try it from here. Call blocked. Call blocked, right? So the call is blocked when I'm placing the call from this 8,500. Now as soon as I delete this record, right? For example, I come here, delete the record as 8,500. Now if I place the same call, the call should be placed. See? Right? So this is about outbound call blocking. Now let's say if I want to block inbound calls, right? Let's say I want to make sure like 10,002 is being blocked from being called. So let's say for incoming, I should say like let's say 10,002. We should not get a call from 10,002, right? So I saved incoming DND. Now I'll place a call from 10,002 to 10,011. So the call is not going. The call is failing. Now, but these guys will be able to call 10,002. Right? Now, as soon as I remove this entry, delete record. Now, if I place the call now, right? Now again, if I want to block the calls for 10,011, I'll come here 10,002. Sorry, I had to add record here. I'll place the same call again. The call is not going. Right, so this is exactly about the services that I have created on this particular server. So this which provides you call blocking inbound and outbound, and also the caller ID services on this server. I hope this video is informative for you, and I'm sure this is gonna be very useful for everyone. At this moment, I don't have any intention to keep this for public, but it's just an FYI how exactly the services can work by putting in all the features in one server. Right? I hope you like this video. Thank you for watching.